Dustin Davis here, let's talk Dolphins. And I'll be honest, the noise around Miami's quarterback situation is getting louder. And this one feels different than before. The Dolphins have a lot of decisions ahead of them this offseason, and not all of them are simple. Beneath the surface, the organization is weighing moves that could reshape the franchise for years to come. Roster turnover, financial pressure, and the new coaching staff with a new outlook are all converging at once, and the choices that follow will define whether Miami takes a real step forward or simply treads water. What unfolds in the coming weeks will say a great deal about the direction of this team. The answers are closer than most people realize. Let's check out some moves for Miami. First of all, let me take a moment to ask for your help. If you enjoy our videos, give us a like. It's a great way to keep the content going. Thanks for the support. Let's start with a story that every Dolphins fan needs to hear, because this one could change the roster in a big way. The bond between Tyreek Hill and the Miami Dolphins appears to be unraveling. On the surface, the financial logic is straightforward. Parting ways would free up close to $11 million in salary cap space. But the deeper issue runs beyond money. Hill's output has declined noticeably compared to his early days in South Florida, and age combined with an accumulating injury history has begun to take a real toll on what he can offer on the field. Even accounting for Hill's long-term credentials as a future Hall of Famer, the Dolphins cannot afford to structure their roster around a prolonged recovery timeline. With roughly 2 months on the clock, the front office appears to be leaning toward a clean break, and that means finding a replacement who can contribute without draining the budget. Any realistic plan to replace Hill assumes that Jalen Waddle stays in his current role as the team's primary deep threat and top-tier receiver. The ideal candidate to fill the gap left by Hill should be someone with NFL experience who can make an immediate impact, or alternatively, a draft prospect with enough raw talent to develop alongside the offense over time. If the Dolphins want to follow the draft-focused philosophy that new general manager John Eric Sullivan has signaled, C.J. Daniels out of Miami becomes a compelling, affordable option. Most projections place him somewhere in the 3rd or 4th round, mainly because scouts view him as an older prospect who lacks a single elite standout physical trait. Standing at 6'1" and weighing 195 pounds, Daniels could carve out meaningful value in what is shaping up to be a thinner than usual receiver class. Selecting him would reflect a longer-term, patient approach to roster building. The film on Daniels shows a receiver who understands how to find open space against zone coverage and take advantage when defenses slip up. That said, his ability to consistently create separation on deep routes still needs work. His release off the line and his route precision both have room to grow if he wants to produce the kind of explosive plays Miami demands. Used as a developmental piece, Daniels could slot in at either the slot or on the outside as coaches steadily sharpen his game. Given enough time and a manageable workload, he has the profile to become a dependable contributor within the Dolphins system. Another name, Jahan Dotson, came into the league as a first-round selection back in 2022 and produced over 1,000 receiving yards and 11 touchdowns across his first 2 seasons in Washington before being dealt to Philadelphia. His role and production have cooled since arriving in Philly, but the fundamental skill set remains intact, and for a 25-year-old receiver in Miami's current setup, that skill set still holds real value if the team deploys him the right way. With Waddle expected to continue handling the bulk of the deep and intermediate routes, Dotson could slot in as a trustworthy option on pivotal third-down situations and inside the red zone. The need for a dependable second receiver becomes even more urgent given that Malik Washington has not lived up to what was expected of him this season. Because Dotson will hit the open market and his recent production numbers have dipped, Miami could realistically bring him in without spending a fortune and plug him right into the offense whenever Waddle draws heavy defensive attention. For a team looking for a short-term, low-hassle addition from someone who already knows what it takes to play in the NFL, Dotson is the most practical and cost-effective way to shore up the receiving core. Having watched past Miami rebuilds, I see a pattern. Replacing a franchise name needs balance. Bring in a plug-and-play vet like Dotson for immediate third-down value while you groom a rookie behind him. Sound right? If you're running the front office, are you signing a vet like Dotson or betting on a rookie? Leave your choice in the comments. Now, shifting gears entirely, there's a quarterback conversation brewing in Miami that's been impossible to ignore. With Jeff Hafley now installed as head coach, the conversation inside the Dolphins organization has shifted squarely to the quarterback position. Tua Tagovailoa still holds the starting job, but persistent chatter about his long-term future, combined with a new coaching staff that appears open to change, has only deepened the debate over whether Miami should finally move on. Tagovailoa has put together impressive stretches and delivered game-winning performances during his time in Miami, yet his overall trajectory has been shaped by stretches of inconsistency and repeated trips to the injury report. Under a front office that seems willing to make wholesale changes, there is a growing case to be made for separating from him this offseason and reshaping the quarterback room around a different kind of player. The financial side of this equation is far from simple. Tagovailoa is locked into a 4-year, $212.4 million contract extension and is now heading into year 3 of that deal. Cutting him outright before the next season would result in roughly $99.2 million in dead cap money, a number that is extraordinarily difficult to absorb. However, if the Dolphins were to delay any kind of roster separation until the 2026 offseason, that dead cap figure drops significantly, landing around $34.8 million. Those numbers essentially steer the conversation toward a trade rather than an outright release. Shipping Tagovailoa to another team could keep the short-term financial damage contained while giving a willing partner an experienced quarterback, whether as a bridge option or a fit for a new system. The challenge, of course, is finding a team that sees enough potential in Tua to make the math work on both sides. What the insiders are saying. The sentiment around the league has shifted in a noticeable way. ESPN insider Adam Schefter reported on NFL Live that there is a growing belief that Tagovailoa may have already played his final game as a Dolphin. According to Schefter, the team still needs to sit down with Tua before making anything public, but the feeling across the NFL is that his time in Miami is drawing to a close. The exact timing and method of any move, however, remain very much up in the air. Among the more ambitious possibilities being floated is a straight quarterback swap, Kyler Murray heading to Miami and Tagovailoa landing in Arizona. Both players carry significant upside, but both also come with baggage, durability concerns, questions about scheme fit, and surrounding rosters that have not always done them justice. This would not be a clean, risk-free upgrade for either franchise. It would be a bold reset, a gamble that both organizations would be making with their eyes wide open. Miami would be gaining a genuinely dynamic, dual-threat quarterback in Murray, someone whose ability to create plays off-script could pair exceptionally well with the Dolphins' collection of talented offensive weapons. Murray's biggest challenges have been staying healthy on a consistent basis and finding a roster and play-calling environment that brings out the best in his game. A move to Miami, with its array of skilled receivers and tight ends, could provide exactly the kind of offensive infrastructure that suits his strengths. Murray's 5-year, $230.5 million contract extension signed in 2022 adds significant complexity to any deal. Arizona has also brought in veterans like Jacoby Brissett on a 2-year, $12.5 million deal to shore up their backup quarterback depth, and all of those financial wrinkles would need to be addressed in any negotiation. Salary retention, draft pick adjustments, and conditional protections would likely all come into play before anything close to an agreement could be reached. Tyrann Mathieu, a former Arizona Cardinals standout and a 3-time All-Pro safety, has weighed in on the idea, arguing that sometimes a change of scenery is exactly what a player and the franchise both need. Mathieu pointed out that at the end of the day, everything in professional football comes back to winning, and a fresh environment can be the most direct route to getting there. Mathieu went on to emphasize that Murray remains an exceptionally talented quarterback, but that reaching his full potential may require a different coaching setup and a more supportive cast around him. In his view, Miami fits that description. The Dolphins have assembled a collection of high-end offensive playmakers, and if the coaching relationship clicks, Murray could unlock another gear entirely. Mathieu specifically pointed to Miami as a realistic destination for Murray, citing the roster of weapons already in place, receivers, running backs, and tight ends who could complement his style of play. He stressed, however, that coaching alignment is just as important as talent. The head coach and quarterback need to be on the same page for the combination to truly work. For Arizona, bringing in Tagovailoa could be a calculated short-term bet designed to stabilize the offense while the franchise works through a broader rebuild. For Miami, Murray represents a high-risk, high-reward play that could accelerate the team's path to real contention. Public reaction would factor into the equation as well. Dolphins fans would be weighing the immediate potential of an upgrade against what it means for the team's long-term financial flexibility. Cardinals supporters would be asking whether Tagovailoa offers the kind of stability and development trajectory that Arizona actually needs right now. I've defended Tua through the ups and downs, but the injuries and cap hit changed the conversation. If those numbers hold, standing still feels riskier than moving him. Are you ready for a reset, or not yet? If you're making the call, do you move on or ride it out one more year? Comment your choice. Support the channel by leaving a like and subscribing. Stay one step ahead with all the latest on Dolphins. See you in the next one.